So a separatory funnel is also used for washing organic phases. There's a couple scenarios we have in the laboratory that require this step. That is, if we've performed a reaction, we have an organic material that was introduced to things such as acetic acid or sulfuric acid, or even a strong base. You'd want to remove these reactants from your organic material. Another scenario is that we've done a reaction, we have it in an organic solvent, and again, we want to wash away an acidic or basic reagent or acid or base that was used while performing the reaction. So here we'll just simulate having an organic phase that has an organic acid or an inorganic acid in that I want to remove from my desired product. To do this, I'm going to use aqueous sodium bicarb. And introduce it to the organic phase very slowly, since I know there's acid in there. A step you might perform before this would be to just use straight water to remove the majority of the acid, and then you would use the aqueous sodium bicarb. So I'm going to add this slowly because I'm expecting, as you add acid and sodium bicarb, as you mix them together, a vigorous formation of carbon dioxide. So we can see CO2 being formed here, and at this stage, if you can really see the bubbling occurring, you're just going to let it sit and react and not tip over our separatory funnel. So I'm going to wait till a lot of the CO2 is released and bubbling slows down substantially. Even before tipping it over, what I might want to do is swirl the contents and again let it sit as the CO2 is released. Of course, what is happening as the CO2 is released is that it's filling the separatory funnel with gas, and if we would close it at this point, pressure would build up, and if you tipped it over, it might explode all over the bench top. So that would be your product and your reagents lost. Again, you want to place the stopper on, forefinger, very gently invert it, and release the pressure. A little shake, and release the pressure again. You can see that build up more pressure. Just do this slowly until no more CO2 is heard as you're venting. You can hear that it's decreasing. And one last vent, there was no release of pressure there. I mixed it really well. Vertical swirl and place it back on the ring stand. Remember to take the stopper off right away as you place it back on the ring stand, because as you know from the Katie and Eric videos, it doesn't work to try to separate the phases with the stopper on. Okay, after letting it sit and we're ready to separate the phases, the question is, was all the acid removed from the organic phase? And to test this, we're going to use a piece of litmus paper. And a glass rod. and catch one of the drops. As it's draining through the bottom. And what I can see is it's somewhat neutralized, but not totally neutralized. So I think I'm going to need one more sodium bicarb wash. So I'm going to drain the bottom layer. Slow at the meniscus. And extract one more time. Not extract, it's not extraction, it's washing. Wash one more time with aqueous sodium bicarb. Now I would expect that this time there would be less bubbles, so let's see. There's still some bubbles. A good thing to do as you're waiting is to test your sodium bicarbonate phase. You can see what we're looking for is more of a green color, which is an indication of weakly basic material or liquid. And do a little swirling here. Let it sit. So there must have been some acid left in the organic phase, or we would not be seeing the bubbling. And as indicated by the pH paper, the acid was not all removed. All right, the second wash should go a lot quicker. Whoop. See a little vent. Shake. And reaction is still taking place, so acid base reacting in there, forming CO2. I always like to leave it open so that any liquid that escaped up from the stopcock drains back down. Ooh, that was a big one. So you can see slow and cautious is the way to go here. And I think we're getting there. Vertical swirl, place it back on the separatory funnel, stopper off, and let the phases separate. You want to make sure you wipe off your glass stir rod so it doesn't have the liquid from the last test. You should be able to use a pH paper multiple times, at least 2. Again, remember, don't put it underneath or in the bottom phase. Now we're going to test it to see if we've removed all the acid from the organic phase. Draining slowly. Grab some drops. Put on the litmus paper, and there we have it. We've neutralized all the acid out of the organic phase. Notice that I can drain the aqueous phase into the previous aqueous phase. And we want to keep the organic phase separate. A final step of washing to dry the organic phase would be to use brine or aqueous sodium chloride. Wash our now neutralized phase, and then you'd be ready for drying of the organic phase with a drying agent such as mag sulfate or calcium chloride.